Hi, my name is Anaya. I'm an apprentice at Southside Community Farm here in Asheville, North Carolina. Before doing this apprenticeship, I had no experience working on a farm full-time, so I was coming into this experience with no idea what to expect, and little did I know I'd be walking into a tiny farm with a large mission, deep history, and collaborative community outreach. The main plot of Southside Community Farm is about half an acre, and it was founded in 2014. This farm used to be a playground for the segregated black school called Livingston Street in 1940s. That school was then closed down in 1970 under a desegregation mandate and was established as a community center in 2012. In the 1960s and 70s, the Asheville Urban Renewal Project was the largest in the southeastern part of the U.S. And before then, the Southside community was a part of East Riverside, Asheville, and a thriving African-American center with parlors, barbershops, stores, gas stations, over 1,000 homes, and 14 grocery stores. However, after the Urban Renewal Project, the homes, stores, shops, and everything that the community had established was destroyed, including the East Riverside community being split in half by what is now Southside and the River Arts District. Now the community houses close to 50% of Asheville's public housing and has one gas station and no grocery stores nearby. If anyone in this community wants to get groceries, they have to take at least 2 city buses. Yet Southside shares the same street as the River Arts District, which is economically buzzing with tourism, food, activities, and more. Despite the food disparities that the Southside neighborhood faced, elders of the community collaborated to start a farm plot to provide fresh food to the community in 2014. Today, it is run by Chloe Moore and has expanded into a total of 3 plots. Although this farm is small in size, it has provided over 1,000 pounds of produce towards free distribution. That's over 50% of the produce grown so far. It produces so much produce ranging from blueberries to collards, summer squash, apples, okra, and so much more. I've learned to harvest the produce on this farm, to make herbal salves, how farmers markets are run. What fascinated me while working here at Southside Community Farm was the community. From day one, there were people who either worked with Chloe or simply live or work in the neighborhood who would come down to the farm to help out, chat, or even just grab some fresh produce. One thing that stood out to me was that there are many Black people in the community who associate land and farming with traumas. This comes from the preconceived notion that our ancestors wanted to escape farming as it relates to enslavement. After slavery, many of our ancestors became great farmers and landowners under their own accord, which is why Chloe tries her best to teach young children and willing adults, emphasize on hosting BIPOC vendors-only markets once a month, as well as BIPOC volunteer work days, and also making free food accessible via the 2 free fridges in the Southside neighborhood. What really surprised me about working on the farm is that it's not just about growing food and selling them or giving to the needy. Working on this farm is just as much physical as it is spiritual, political, scientific, and social. Chloe said something in our interview that stood out to me, and it was that if you're going to work in agriculture, you cannot be apolitical. The world runs off of agriculture, and it's the main reason why this land that we are on today itself was colonized and then monetized off the labor of indigenous people here and around the world. While working on the farm, I've learned about the amount of physical labor it takes to maintain it. I've done a lot of weeding, planting, harvesting, and pruning to ensure the health of this farm. And it has taught me to be more grateful for the food that I eat and the hands that create and deliver them to my plate. But to work on this farm doesn't just mean doing rigorous physical labor outside. It's also about experimentation. Given that this farm plot is so small, Chloe had to experiment a lot to grow so much on a tiny space of land. She had to learn about companion planting, like the 3 sisters practiced by indigenous people, where they plant squash, corn, and beans together. He also had to learn about intercropping in order to grow such a successful array of veggies. Working on this farm is also spiritual because it allows us to tune into the values of our ancestors, the value that plants give to us and we give back to them in return. It's also political because to work on a farm that provides free and fresh produce for the community is looked down upon by the government and often targeted or made difficult. All of this is why the farm does not just function from a savior perspective and giving to the needy, but more so it's of mutual aid and survival. This farm was started by Indigenous, Black, and people of color for Indigenous, Black, and people of color. And it is nothing more than a resource for the community to use when needed, no strings attached and no facade. This, along with so many other reasons, is why farms like Southside Community Farm are so important for our future. The future of food is the efforts of small-scale farms making big changes in the smallest ways. Despite the industrial agriculture industry contributing so much to the degradation of our environmental health and climate change, it can also be one of the biggest solutions. For example, here at Southside Community Farm, carbon sequestering is practiced where any organic matter is composted back into the soil, thus supporting healthy crops and carbon recycling and trapping technology. The plots run by Southside Community also help to combat the urban heat trap, where urban areas tend to be hotter due to concrete. There's also an emphasis on seed resiliency to ensure stronger generations of seeds over time, and they also focus on community and bringing everyone together in the best ways that they can. Yet the most important reason that this type of work is pertinent to our future is that it secures our future. Farming shouldn't exploit peasant farmers who feed the world or be manipulated by politics for monetization rather than mutual aid. We are all a part of this interconnected and complex food web. This is a job for all of us as a collective to participate on any level, whether that be economically, politically, spiritually, collectively, or socially.